I'm going to give you, first of all, an overview of what meditation is or can be, and what people mean by meditation, and what different types of meditation there are. And we're going to touch upon different techniques as well, and I'm going to give you guidance on, you know, what you can do by yourself, and some possibility of shifting between different practices depending on what's going on with your life. And so the first thing I'd like to say is that I'm going to divide meditation into 3 types. So the first type is pure observation or awareness. And we call it also open meditation. And by this, and we're going to go more into what observation is from, you know, meditation point of view or a spiritual point of view. In these forms of meditations, essentially, you sit and you close your eyes and you observe what is happening inside of you without doing anything, without putting any constriction to the mind or the body, or without doing any particular technique. And a little bit, this is also quite linked to mindfulness. Mindfulness has an observation approach. So another thing about this type of meditation, where you sit and you observe, is that you can have something that you're observing. And so, for example, there can be a slight focus on observing the mind and the content of the mind and the thoughts that go through the mind. And it seems very simple, almost like doing nothing, but it isn't that. Because essentially, when you sit and you close your eyes and you start to observe the content of the mind, you activate another capability of the human being, which is observation, which is also called awareness, but it's a distinct factor from the thinking mind. So when we're in a normal state of affairs and we're going around and we're thinking about things, you could say that we are inside of the thoughts. And when you sit and you put your intention into observing what is going into your mind, then you are starting to tend towards the mindfulness and the observation part of human capability. And that's when it starts shifting into meditation. So basically, being lost in thought, normal state of affairs. Sitting, you can also do it not sitting, but it's usually good to start by sitting because it's simpler, you're doing less things. Sitting and observing the thoughts starts to become meditation. And thus there's also a lot of studies in that. You can also shift the focus of this practice to, for example, the physical body. So you can also sit and observe the physical body, and that's another type of practice. So this we call open awareness, and you do nothing.
Sorry, I was just going to say, with observing the physical body, is that obviously with your eyes closed, but observing how each part of your body feels?
Yeah, you can do that, or you can observe the body in its totality. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay.
But I'll give you more guidance on when we will apply this.
Mm-hmm.
There is a hidden principle in this that makes it work, apart from the fact that you start to develop this awareness, which is mentioned loads in meditation, and you start to exercise this, but you start to also exercise the principle of non-resistance, and a lot of the friction and the suffering and the pain and the anxiety comes to the resistance that we have to the thoughts we produce, which basically means that we are going about it the wrong way. Not wrong because it's morally wrong, wrong because it doesn't work. Let me give you an example. If you have a river full flow coming towards you and you want to kind of stand and block it in front of it, that is going to cause a lot of kind of pressure, and you're never going to be able to do it. But if you get out of the river and you walk back and you find maybe a lock mechanism, or you divert the water in another place, then you don't have that resistance. Or if you just step out of the river and look at the river sitting down from the side. So imagine your mind and your flow of thoughts that may be more or less pleasant, usually less pleasant, otherwise we wouldn't care that much, you know, the good ones would. But the less pleasant ones, if we step aside and look at them, automatically we start to gain a certain level of peace, and we start to gain a certain level of clarity, and we start to gain a certain level of awareness, which means that we then catch ourselves a bit earlier on some of the things. You could call a little bit also this principle the principle of detachment. So when you are in the river and opposing it, even worse, we call that attachment, and we're trying to do all we can to change things because we're not happy with them. When we step out and we simply observe, we build a sense of detachment, which is a healthy sense of detachment. But we'll go into this. Then there is another type of meditation, which is a little bit of a in between with the third type. But this type is, I would call it an inner exercise. So meaning that now we're not just observing something, now we are engaging and we're doing something. Let me give you, well, an example is, for example, the practice that we'll do today, the descent to zero, which is going to be one of the basics. But let me give you another example. There are meditations that come from ancient Taoism and Taoism, but also, you know, part of the yoga, where, for example, you sit down, and as you breathe, you move your attention all in the body. For example, they have this that they call the small revolution and the big revolution, or celestial revolution. So, for example, you breathe in, and you bring all your attention behind your back as you're breathing in. And then as you breathe out, you go down and you feel the front part and you're breathing out. So now you are sitting, you are activating your awareness because you're observing. You're not just observing, you're also bringing the attention inwards. There is a lot of things, a lot of steps, you know, almost impossible to count, that sometimes are hidden in these very simple practices. But every time, for example, you sit and you do something like that, you are taking your attention out and bringing it in consciously. And that has a whole set of benefits as well. So you have these practices. I'll give you another example. You sit and you relax with meditation techniques, for example, and then you go and you revisit a chapter of your childhood, and you connect with what is called in psychology and in spirituality the inner child. That is a form of meditation, but it's completely different from a Buddhist mindfulness sitting and observing the content of the mind. And it has different effects and different benefits. They all overimpose and have bits that are useful, but they can be used at different times and by different people, or for different aspects. So for example, if someone comes and wants to improve their life, and perhaps a lot of their problems come from extremely traumatic childhood, right? And they've never dealt with it, then the pure observation may be less suitable in a certain moment compared to inner childhood visualizations or work. And so, but those would probably be not a daily practice. You wouldn't do that daily as you would maybe sitting and observing the content of the mind. So some of the practices are what I call core practices. They're practices that you would do, and would be helpful to do every day. And then other practices that come in maybe for a period or a day or a retreat or whatever, and help clear, and then you go back to the core practice and you advance and you advance. Yeah? So type 1, we observe without interfering. Type 2, we do some work on ourselves. Type 3, we transcend. We only move in the direction of leaving everything behind and shifting our attention on pure silence and pure being. Which is a little bit, sometimes seems less kind of tangible, and to be fair it is, but we all have a part of us which we can call being. Some people can see it as just life force, some people can see it as a state of consciousness, but we do things, we think things, we feel things, but we are. And so my attention can be in what I think, in what I do, on what I remember, on what I feel, or on who I am. And when the attention goes on to who I am, that's when we realize that who we are is something absolutely amazing and out of this world, and the source of infinite bliss and peace and anything that you can imagine and beyond, and so much beyond that when we touch it, we need to kind of go slowly, because it's so much light, it can burn our nervous system. It's so powerful. So we also look at the graduality of this. But so in this third type, now we take our attention and we focus it on something, and this we're going to call deep meditation. We'll learn a bit further. And we focus it on something until our mind is so focused that basically we let go of that something and we just reside in silence for a little bit. It won't be for the whole time that you're sitting down, because that would take, a few lifetimes of mastery. You may be there, but But even a little bit is enough. So these are the three types, kind of the three broad categories of things, of meditations that you may encounter in your life, and you can probably fit them in those, and we will touch upon some of these.